Okay, let's see how this is going. Alright, so we got some micro EDC options here. Hopefully the audio's coming through. It's my first time streaming and setting everything up with the Panasonic GH2. We'd have it hooked into the laptop here. So we'll see what's going on. But yeah, so I have some EDC items I want to go over here. And if you guys want some input or want to give your feedback or have questions, feel free to type it out. I'll glance over at chat. But yeah, we got some items in here. So we got the Roaring Fire Pico Fire EDC pouch. This is a small little pouch that I use for incognito wearing and for just portability. It's extremely small, fits a lot of items in it, pretty tough and rugged. My cousin got this for me for Christmas last year, so it's a really nice gift. It's got some nice wear into it, which is pretty cool. Zippers are pretty functional, the YKK zippers. They got these nice pull tabs. You can take them off and make this reduced size if you want. I prefer to keep everything stock and default on this. What I like about this bag is that it has a nice little holder here for the zipper. I don't know if you guys can see that. And it prevents it from opening up, so it's pretty smart to do something like that inside the case. If we look at the Van Quest item, we don't have something like that to prevent the zippers from moving out. So it's kind of a nice little smart idea. For reference, this is the Van Quest PPM Slim 2.0. It's kind of similar to the Roaring Fire Pico Fire, but it's a little bit different and a little bit bigger. It's a little bit different mentality here. But the front zippers have, I just have some basic items in here, like a water bag in there in case I need to get water. I can fill it up. I have some also medicine in there as well, and there's some also ouchie boo boo kit stuff in here, a little medical kit. I'm not going to go ahead and take everything out, but it's in the pocket here. Let's open this up and just take a look inside. So I have a whole bunch of stuff in here, and I packed this to the gills basically. So there are two pockets behind all this webbing. We have a huge pocket behind all this, one huge pocket behind here. We stuff a bunch of stuff in there. I didn't put too many items in there because I needed to access the webbings on the outside. And that's what I like about this, is that it has a combination of pockets, webbings, and a zippered pocket, along with these separate type of pockets here, these three different pockets, 1, 2, and 3, where you can store different items like credit cards or money or whatever, and loose change in this pocket here, which is kind of nice. And it has like a nice little zippered stitching part here where you can undo the zipper here and you can access what's inside of here, and it expands out a little bit, which is kind of nice to get into to access your items. I don't have too much in here except for charging cables, a compass, and some small hand sanitizer in a little vial. It's like in the corner here. So that's what I have for inside this pocket. I'm not going to go too much in depth with this, just talking about it and seeing if anybody wants to say anything or ask any questions. So we have lip balm here. We do have a lighter wrapped in beeswax, hemp wick, and it's a Bic lighter, so it's wrapped around a depressor. So if I push a depressor out, it won't engage, so I won't lose any of the fuel inside of it, or at least prevent the leaking or reduce it enough so that I can use it when I need it. We have a Leatherman micro in here as well, and we have a small micro EDC Multitools AAA light. This is the titanium version from, I think, 2016, meaning it has Nietzsche 219C emitters in it, and it's like a nice neutral color, and it's got 3 different modes on it. It has a low, medium, and high, or rather low, high, medium. I'm not sure why they did it that way with the UI, but it's a pretty good light. It's got a nice metal cap in the back here. It takes a while to charge up the capacitor in there with the battery, so you won't get all the modes right away. But it's a nice piece of technology from Lumentop for that time in history of 2016, 2017. It's pretty cool to have a high CRI, warmer tint, small AAA light. It's very, very small compared to, say, the Phoenix LD02, which I just got recently. you can see the size difference here. This has like an extra length on the head here, so it's pretty big. But it's kind of nice though, in this size reference. This also has an extra LED in it. This has a Cree XQE or XQ-E LED, and has 4 different modes. It has a UV light in it as well, so you can inspect things with the UV light. I like to have a UV light capable flashlight in my small micro kits because I like to check things and make sure there's no chemicals and things like that around. I found this on Marine X's YouTube channel a few days ago, and I ordered it after watching it, and it came in. It's pretty decent light. I just did a review on it. Kind of cool light, 1 AAA. Not for the light snobs out there because it has artifacts on the beam profile, so it can make for an ugly beam, in my opinion. So it's not the greatest, but if you're looking for an inspection light that has a UV light in it and is a AAA light and it's modular, this is the one to go to. But moving back out to the Lumitop AAA, we have, it's also AAA light, but it's very, very thin. So again, let's take this back out and compare the two. Much thinner, much smaller than the Phoenix LD02. Basically, this can overheat though, so you want to be careful of that. It's got a brass ring around it so that it doesn't exactly overheat that much, but it can get pretty hot on high, so you want to run this on medium and low. This is not made for a trial run. This is basically just an EDC micro type of tool for bring it out, take a look real quick at something, and then turn it back off. So you're not going to get the best run times and heat efficiency with these smaller micro EDC lights. So that's a compromise, obviously. The smaller it is, the less efficient it is for duration and durability usually. So, but anyway, that's the light. Try not to blind you guys. So, and this has a little bit of a glow-in-the-dark paint around it, like a little, looks like a little O-ring on the glass behind the anti-reflective coated glass here. It's got an orange peel reflector in the top, so it's got a nice beam profile. So I'll show you like that on my skin there or on the table here. So no artifacts in this one. So that is a difference between the LD02 Phoenix for $30, and I think I got this for $36 at the time. You can buy the, I think they're called the AAA mass drops, I think is what they call these now. You can buy the brass version of this also, but there's no more titanium version, which has a Nietzsche, I don't know how to pronounce that, Nietzsche 219C emitter in it. It's just got basically a cool white emitter in it if you're going to get the smaller titanium version. But anyway, good light, works pretty well for this little micro kit that I have here, and it's one of the primary or secondary, if you want to call them that, lights. It could be either or basically. So moving up to the second light, I have a Nikkor Tiki. Now this is a nice little $20 light. It has several different light modes on it. It's USB micro rechargeable, and it's IP, I think, 6.8 waterproof, which is pretty cool. To turn it on, you have to double click, and it comes in low mode always. You got, or rather moonlight, this is low, this is medium, and this is high. So we have a very powerful little light. If you compare the size to this AAA light and then the LD02, it's pretty small, and you have a rotation of different outputs, which is kind of nice with this light. I like the moonlight mode and the low mode. I typically use moonlight mode and low modes on my lights because those are the most useful running EDC lights that I have in terms of like run times. For a micro EDC light, I'm not looking to have something out pushing like over 200 lumens. It's just not practical or useful, and I like to prolong my battery life on my lights. Anyway, this doesn't have an interchangeable battery, which is kind of a bummer, but that's okay because for the price and for what it does, I can make that kind of compromise. I typically don't like non-interchangeable batteries in lights. I'd rather have a modular system personally, but this is being an exception. I do make a couple exceptions for some lights. So to access the other LEDs in here, we have 2 others. We click 3 times, and now we got a UV LED, which is kind of cool. This one puts out a little bit stronger beam than the LD02. It's also 365 nanometers wavelength, so here's what the two LEDs look like. This one definitely is a brighter one. It's more diffused due to the frosted plastic in front, which has a nice beam profile. It does get warm when you leave it on the UV light, so I'm going to change off the UV light to the high CRI light. Now this is a nice diffused beam. You can hang this off on a hanger in a camp tent and use it as a small makeshift lamp for temporary lighting, which is really amazing for this small micro EDC light. It's one of my favorite micro EDC lights, by the way, if you can't tell. And it's got a nice beam. It shows color pretty well, so you can kind of see the table, my hand, renders the color pretty decently. If we push one more time, we get what we call a beacon mode, which is really nice to hang off your backpack at night. I have used this when I've walked around the lake where I live, and in conjunction with other signaling devices. This is really good when it's dark out or it's kind of somewhat foggy or it's just low light conditions. I have like a little beacon light is pretty cool. I like beacons preferably over SOS type of modes because it's just straightforward, and it shines pretty good too for white light. Then you push again, it goes back to the UV. Push again, goes back to the CR light. Hold down, it turns off the whole light. Now if you press and hold, it'll give you immediate access to the high mode, which is really cool, so you don't have to turn on the light, but it's a momentary on. Once you release the switch, it goes off. So you can check something real quick with this, then release, and you're done. That's a pretty effective UI, in my opinion, from Nitecore. They make decent UI systems, in my opinion, for non-programmable, customizable UIs. I prefer Nitecore UIs as opposed to like Olight or other UIs out there. Generally speaking, Nitecore makes some decent stuff. So that is the micro little light. And let me check chat here. I'll be right back. Just checking to see if the chat stream is going through. Okay, it says I'm live, and let's click on this. Okay, cool. All right, testing 1 2, testing. See if this comes through in the chat. All right, testing 1 2, testing. See if this comes through in the chat. All right, looks like it's going through. So I'm going to mute that so we don't have to hear the echo. All right, good. We're up and running. So, okay, so again, we have the micro EDC light here, Nitecore Tiki. Great light. Can recharge it up pretty well, pretty fast. I don't carry any battery chargers in this particular kit as it's a small little kit. I plan to use this one in like weddings and other events where I can't wear all my duty gear or whatever, tactical gear, whatever you want to call it. So this is more of an indiscreet kind of carry, and it forces me to go minimal and lightweight, which I kind of like actually, because it forces me to rethink my micro EDC options. In the back here we have some dental floss. I use this as cordage. I wrapped it around some paper straws, or rather plastic straws here. So I have, I think in total, this is probably about a good 12 and a half. No, I think this is probably more like 35 feet of dental floss for cordage. So that's more than enough for a small kit like this. I can use it for multiple things, for sewing, for tying up things like hanging up my light, to have hands-free operation, for sewing, threading things, and there's a whole bunch of uses. This is wax, by the way, mint wax. I prefer mint wax dental floss personally. We have a small cleaning cloth for my glasses and other lenses and whatnot. We have a small denture brush here for just brushing my teeth, or just any kind of items for getting in those hard to reach places. You can use one of these small brushes and it can help out cleaning things like the Leatherman Micro, for example, here. This is a great light, rather multi-tool. I'm so used to doing lights. This is a great multi-tool. I got to clean this one off. It's been used a little bit, so I haven't cleaned it yet. But I just got to spray down some WD-40 displacement cleaner in there, and then I got to get either hops number, I think number 9 or number 8, oil, just oil it up and keep it going. But so far it's running pretty good. No, not really that dirty because it's kept inside the case here, but I do use it. Yeah, I got to clean this one. It's getting a little on the dirtier side for me, so I don't particularly like that. But we got tweezers here. We got a Phillips head screwdriver. We got a smaller slotted screwdriver with a bottle cap opener. So that's kind of cool. You can use this as a makeshift poker too to kind of make a hole a little bit. It's not a real awl, so you want to be careful with that. But and we have the knife blade here, which we pulled out before. This is still sharp. Yep. So not bad. And then we have the little hook thing for cleaning nails, I guess, and the little nail file to make your nails nice and neat. Then we have a bigger slotted screwdriver here. And we have the main scissors. The spring is working pretty good. What I like about the Micra is that it's so compact and it's so symmetrical. Plus you have like a ruler section here for centimeters and inches on one side. So that's pretty useful if you're trying to measure something really quick. Kind of get an idea of, like, say for example, this I-102 Pro Special Edition. I think this is the 15-year anniversary edition, if I'm not mistaken. And you can kind of get an idea of the scale for it. So this is probably, if we turn this around, roughly about 4-5 centimeters, maybe 4 3/4 or something like that. So you get the idea. You can kind of get a measurement and then measure everything else against it. Underneath the webbing here, we do have some hair bands. I used to have long hair, but I like having rubber bands. So using hair ties as rubber bands is usually what I do for rubber bands. And underneath this webbing strap, beneath the chapstick and the lighter, is some zip ties. So I keep a couple zip ties. You never know when you might need to make a knot somewhere where you can't make a knot. You can just use a zip tie and then use the I have some nail clippers in here. You clip it off, cut it, instead of using your knife because it's kind of hard to get in those spots. You use a nail clipper, you clip it, and then you're done. Here in this section, in the middle part here, I do have a reflecting mirror that's has a little paper coating on front of it so it doesn't get scratched. I typically keep these in a small bag also to prevent it from getting scratched, but these are the base glide type of mirrors. They have a little hole in there for sighting, so when you're doing your mirror stuff, you can sight it in and kind of point where you're reflecting your stuff. So kind of neat, kind of cool. I have a little bit of a sewing repair kit here with some safety pins and a through sewer. So take the thread, you put it through the needle. It's this little flat discs. It's kind of nice for threading needles. So I think in this one we have the portable aqua. So I got 2 tabs in here, and then I have that small plastic bag in the front of the kit so I can fill that with water, put that in the bag, and wait a couple, I think directions say a couple hours if I'm not mistaken, for this particular type of purification process. So I have 2 items in here that I can use. Then I have a small bag with a paper ruler inside of it because it's flat and tiny, and it takes up almost no space in this kit, which is filled to the max. I have a couple other items in here. In the back I have this kind of chintzy pry bar kind of thing going on. I'm not sure how effective this is, but I did get this free with a thing a long time ago and I never really used it. I mainly use it for like a scraping tool maybe, or just a low duty pry bar, and it's a unique kind of size that fits in here, kind of fits with the whole thing. It's not sharp, so it's not going to cut up my case too much, but I can use it for you know, striking flint if I need to. It's got a whole bunch of little things in here. So that is the makeshift pry bar. And then behind here I have some fire making stuff. I'm not going to pull out everything because it's a pain in the butt to pull it all out and then put it back in at the same time. But I have some cordage in here too. I have 95-pound hank of it. There's no coarse strand in the 95-pound cordage, so it's about 12.5 feet of actual nylon cordage as opposed to the dental floss. So I do have that in here. I have a little O-Pen mini here in the back, And then I have a sewing kit here with some tape around it as well. And that's about it for this side, along with matches, waterproof, stormproof matches in the back there. So we have basically, I think, 2 or 3 methods of starting a fire with this particular kit. I do have a Fresnel lens. I think they call it, I always call it a Fresnel lens, but they call it a Fresnel lens. It's in the back of this pocket here because it's so flat and straight. I keep it in here also for starting fires and for inspecting things up close. You never know when you're going to need something like that in a kit. Now, I was inspired by a lot of the Altoids survival can kits that people make on YouTube, and you know, they make some pretty cool stuff. I just wanted something that is going to be a little bit more, I guess, practical in my case, meaning I want to be able to open something up basically and zip it back up without going to too much problems. And this is sort of like my answer for that kind of need, because this is such a small little piece of kit here. I can open and close it. I don't have to go through almost everything to get through the essential stuff like the light, the multi-tool. And before I end on this piece here, we do have also in the back that's dummy corded is a whistle. So I do have a whistle dummy corded to this, as well as my light, and I used to have this dummy corded to it, but it stays in pretty well, so I'm not afraid of losing it. But I do have another light dummy corded into this key fob holder. So basically I have signaling devices in here, I have writing devices, I have cutting devices, I have fire starting devices, I have a little bit of cloth which you can make into char cloth if I do it right. I have some cordage materials, I have more signaling devices, a mirror. Then I have a little compass in here, cleaning agents, some USB cables for charging my stuff, namely for this light here. So there's a lot of small items that I have in this kit that just make it pretty practical for a incognito or a low profile kind of look. I can put this in a jacket coat pocket, unlike my other kits which are just huge. This fits into places where those wouldn't, and it's a decent quality item. I mean, the stitching's pretty decent, it holds up pretty well. It's got padding on the inside of the pouch here, which adds to its rigidity, which is kind of nice. At first I didn't like it because it took up a lot of space on the inside, but I realized this thing kind of expands out quite a lot, so it's really well done. And I do like the flat dark earth kind of coloring. This comes in all black or flat dark earth, which I prefer my items to be tan and black. Kind of breaks up the monochromatic scheme of things, in my opinion. I don't usually put morale patches on my items. Just something I don't do. Kind of not as functional for me. This is like enough for my entertainment. So if that's your thing, you can put a morale patch on the front here. Let's move over to the VanQuest PPM Slim 2.0. I just got this off of Amazon. They're a little bit more pricier than these. These are like maybe $23, $24. And with the shipping, they come out to about that much or so, or maybe 26. This is about $28 to $30 if you get it on Amazon. If you have Prime, it'll come for free shipping. So around the same price point as this, just a little bit more expensive. It's a little bit bigger, as you can tell. Just a little bit extension on that. So it might be a little bit tougher to fit in the pocket. However, it takes all the bulkiness of this vertical section here and expands it out kind of horizontally, if you will, or in another dimension, like width, length, and height, if you will. If we open it up, it has a little bit different kind of organization process. It has bigger pockets in the back here and here, and it has a little bit more webbing, and has webbing in the bottom, which I like. And the webbing is designed in such a way that it's kind of offset. So let's say if you have a long pen or a long device here, this goes into this cranny here, and this kind of like channels into this stitching here, so it kind of integrates nice and neatly stacked. So that's what I like about VanQuest, is that they think about how they do their layout of the insides of their pouches, versus say, let me get it out here and show you real quick what I mean. Oh, hi Alex, good to see you. I didn't realize we had people watching. Okay. Yeah, it's an impressive kit. I do have a little bit of fire starting in this kit here. This is not a complete kit. This is kind of just experimentation that I'm working on. Getting back to the comparison of the webbing here in the VanQuest packs versus, say, like a Maxpedition kind of kit, you can see they don't offset their stitching, so it forces you to repack your kit a certain way, and it makes your packing less efficient in terms of space saving. And since I like to fill up my packs to the brim, that's a pretty important feature in my opinion. It's not a necessary thing for everybody's kit, but for me in general, if I'm gonna like have a lot of useful tools in one spot, I might as well have efficient packing methods. So this VanQuest system allows me to pack my stuff a little bit more. I'm not saying one is better than the other, I'm just saying for my needs, this is kind of like why I like it and why I prefer it over the Maxpedition. I've been using VanQuest and Maxpedition products for maybe 7 years, 8 years now, probably longer than that. Let me check chat here. Oh yeah, cool. So this little kit, I got this little item in. I saw this on another channel recently. In terms of, I don't know if it's gimmicky or not. I haven't had a chance to test this out. I have used small ferro rods like this, namely in the Victorinox Swiss Champ items. Let me bring it out and show you. So this is my secondary Swiss Champ. I have another one, primary one, which has the same setup. For ferro rods, you have these small ferro rods. This is from Firefly for the Victorinox stuff. And these are like a little micro ferro bars. They do work. You have to hold this a certain way. You don't want to do it on the broad side of the stick. You want to do it on the thinner side so it's more resilient. And you want to back it up when you're doing your fire starting. Now it's a bit tricky because you need fine motor skills to work with this. And if you don't have fine motor skills, it's going to be kind of hard to start a fire with these ferro rods. I've been out in the cold, and you want something with gross, that you can operate with gross motor skills. So I wouldn't recommend these as a primary fire starting tool. As a last resort, they do work. You just got to get really good at how to aim and technique and aiming the spark, which I'm working on myself. I'm not an expert with that stuff, but to give you an idea of the sizing for ferro bars, compared to this I just got in, this is Southern Survival. I think this is made by, or shipped out by a person called BattleBox on eBay. Anyway, it's a combo type of tool. You have the striker in with it, and you do have the ferro rod here, and you can, it's a little bit more stable versus the individual ferro rod there, and you can kind of get a good strike. I like that it has a striker with it, and it does have a whistle also, so the whistle is kind of cool. I don't know how effective it really is if it gets wet, but it's better than nothing, and it's already taken up the space, so might as well throw a whistle on there. Could be a secondary whistle to back up your primary one in case it breaks or gets lost. But we have that in the kit here. I'm going to be making a wallet that's going to be using this kind of platform soon, and I think I'm going to put that in the wallet and this light here. So let's get this off the table. Oh, the volume's low? Okay. We got my friend Marine X here. How you doing, bud? Let me get the volume going. I'm kind of working on the setup here. Hang on. Okay. Hopefully it's a little bit louder now. I'm still trying to fix the audio. Is that a little better for the audio? Okay, I'm going to keep pumping it up then. All right, how about now? How do we sound now? Still kind of low? All right. Okay, we're at 14.5 dB, negative 14.5 dB. Hopefully it's coming through a little bit better now. Okay, cool. Thanks, guys, for helping me out. I'm kind of dialing everything in. And yeah, Alex, I try to plan for most things, but you can't, these kits, they have their pros and cons. And obviously my needs are very different compared to somebody else's needs. I'm always trying to figure out what best works for me, and it's always a constant change. Like, I've gone through so many different little EDC kit bags over the years, and it's a trial and everything. Like, some things have worked, some things I've never touched for tools. Some bags I just leave in a storage state for if I lose something, but I realize, you know, it's just lack of interest of using something. And MarineX, my friend who's on the channel here, you know, he did mention something that's really important, is to enjoy the items that you have. Like, you can go to like the $1.25 store, we'll call it that, and you know, you can get a bunch of cool items, right? But this is kind of just bland. You can get like a $13 nail clipper that's better than that and looks really cool, and you get a personal enjoyment out of it, and it still functions like the $1.25 store nail clipper, right? So there's that aspect of EDC carrying that I agree with. There's the practical side of things, and then the more enjoyable side of things. So it's kind of finding a good medium. And if I don't enjoy something, I'm probably not going to want to carry it or use it or practice with it. And that's really important. That's key, I believe, when it comes to carrying like small micro EDC items. But you know, enough of the side tangent there. But yeah, I do have here, let me get it out. I actually happen to have an extra piece here. Let me bring it out here for you guys. So I got a couple of these sewing kit things, and I put them in like let me find it here, hang on. So to answer Alex's question, and this is gonna pique MarineX's interest. These are cheapo pens. They're very, you know, you buy them in a pack for like 20 for, I don't know, $3 or whatever. They're big pens. So they're not the greatest writing utensil, but they are a writing utensil. And I wanted to experiment with taking up as much or as little space as I can while putting the maximum amount of items into something. Doesn't always end up being a practical thing or a fun thing, but I take these sewing kits, right? And you got to be real careful when you put in there, because through my experimentation, sometimes you can catch the, let me pull it out here so you guys can see what I'm talking about. This ink well will get caught on a needle, so you want to make sure you either block it off or put your needles to the side inside the pen here, so you can stick these needles in it. It's just about the right kind of size for it, and you just have enough room inside with the ink insert to fit inside these needles, except for the curved ones, the sailing ones. But so that's what I like to do with these sewing kits. To answer your question, Alex, I try to cut down and put smaller kits inside of here as a backup pen, and then what I'll do is I'll take some tape and wrap it around like duct tape here, and then in the center we'll probably wrap around like sewing thread. And then I found out it does get loose sometimes, so what I like to do is either put a cover on that thread so it doesn't move, and then on the cap, since this is unused space up here, I usually put high grade UL electric tape on this. So I have a small repair kit right here on the pen. I can still write with it. It's not a fun writing experience, but it's practical and it gets the job done. Basically, I wouldn't do this with, like, say, my more expensive pens, but for something like this, it kind of combines everything in one spot instead of having it spread out in the kit. Now, I have experimented with like smaller vials, we'll call them, like thin vials where it can fit only a certain number of needles in it. The main thing is having like some sort of sail needle or a carpet or canvas type needle with your kit. So, but you can get a pack of these like on Amazon. I think this is $4 for $8, so it's about $2 comes out to. So I like to keep mini repair kits with me because I do sew my clothing out in the trail sometimes, and I do like to sew some of these kits when the seams come out, because I pretty much put them through the ringer. But anyway, micro EDC pen, if you will. Well, not really micro, but small little EDC pen kit idea. I don't know. I haven't been to a football stadium or out Marine X, so I don't know if it's going to be compliant. I have no idea. I tend to, avoid places like that personally. But hey, you might have more info on that than me. Yeah, I've been stuck a few times with needles. So moving along. So that is the VanQuest not Husky, the Slim 2.0 ppm. Personal pocket maximizer is what they call it, and it's a nice little pouch here. I thought about using this as a wallet, but it doesn't have the organization for credit cards is really what I was looking for in a kit, along with a combination of webbing, and the Roaring Fire tended to have something like that. So and it's a little bit smaller in profile in terms of length. It's a little bit more less rectangular, I should say, and it fits my needs perfectly. So I'm going to be making probably a wallet EDC kit soon out of this thing. I got another one coming in, and I kind of want to experiment with some of these tools. I don't necessarily want to have it this huge, or maybe I do. I don't know. I'm going to be changing around my EDC carry throughout the season, so it's something to experiment with on the table here. So moving along, we do have some other options that I want to talk about, and if you want to have questions and whatnot, get this off of there. And we have some tools here and lights. Yeah, definitely, Marine X. I definitely hear you with that. They do make some nice stuff. I think they're very kind and very very upfront about who they are, and I like dealing with Taylor. I don't know if you talked to Taylor, but Taylor's an awesome guy. He sends me out stuff from time to time when I ask her. I was like, hey, can I try this out? I want to figure out how I can make it, and I like his videos too that he puts up for the VanQuest marketing team. Great brand. I like supporting VanQuest. Their stuff is made in Taiwan, and they're an American-based company, so I feel pretty good about doing that. And they just make quality stuff, and I've been using them for years, so I don't really have too much negative to say about them. There are a couple of things here and there, but it's more of a nitpick preference kind of thing. So yeah, I definitely hear you with that. You have a foldable solar blanket for your ham radio. That's pretty cool. Yeah, I haven't talked to the owner of Nutsack. My other friend, Simple Preparedness, Brett, over there. I don't know if you've seen his YouTube channel. He's got a couple of Nutsack items, and those are pretty cool to check out as well. I was looking at their, I think it's called the Jones 15. It's like a $400 like satchel, but it's like kick-ass looking. It's beautiful. I just don't know if I can go that deep into something and try to justify it yet. Yet is the key word. Hey, Understand the Times. How you doing, bud? Good to see you. Wow, we got Marine X, Understand the Times, Alex in here. Got a good party going. Yes, these are the VX1R and the VX3R. I don't have the 2R. My brother has it. A little bit of background. My whole family is ham radio operators, and my brother and I, we've been doing it since 1997. So we got our licenses when we were, I think, 12. Yeah, we got the no-code tech is what they call it. It's since then changed from that time period. I think they did away with the Morse code requirement now. So I got my journal like maybe about 5 years ago now, I think. 4 years ago. 5 or 4 years, I can't remember. But anyway, these are the micro HTs. Since we're talking about like micro EDC items, these are the smallest type of radios you can get on the market, or aftermarket, I should say. You can't find these anymore, which is the problem for anybody trying to collect these. They go for a high price on eBay. But to give you an idea, here is what they call a regular HT, which in my mind is still small, right? This is the Yaesu VX7R. This is my main EDC radio. I carry this everywhere I go, outside the house, inside the house, around town for work. I've used this on rescues. It's a quad band radio. It does dual band It has a dual band antenna on it though, but it can do quad band transmissions. We're looking at 6 meters, 1.25 meters, 2 meters, and 70 centimeters. It's fully submersible, so it's waterproof and rugged. It has a wideband reception, which is what I like about the Yaesu type of radios. These are very hard to find too, so you're going to have to really pay out the wazoo for these on eBay, or if you go to Ham Radio Fest, you can find these kind of radios on sale from the vendors, but you're rolling the dice at that point. But hey, that's probably how you can get some of these items for on the low instead of going eBay prices, and they've just jacked them up like crazy. But this is not a micro EDC item, but just a comparison to, say, a standard type of HT size, I would say, today. And this is kind of an old HT too. This came out around the same time as or right after the VX1R, so it's very old technology. Yeah, PowerFilm. I actually have a couple PowerFilm panels, foldable ones. They did sell them on the market on Amazon a few years back. I picked up a few of them. I have the I think the PF15. Basically it's a 10 watt, 15.4 volt not on a load solar panel, so it unravels. It's got the 12 volt socket adapter with it. I use that with my KX3 and the KX2, and also my Yaesu 817 radio. But I had a couple of their other smaller ones. They didn't last too long, weren't that well built, or I might have got like a lemon. But anyway, getting to the VX1R, this is one of my favorite radios. It's a dual band radio, and it has a wideband reception. So when we say dual band or quad band or mono band, what that really means is the frequency range this can transmit on. So in other words, a mono band radio, for example, a 2 meter radio, let's say, for example, can transmit on probably anywhere from 144 to 148 megahertz. And if a radio can only do that, it's called a monoband radio. If it can do both 144 and up to 148, and also UHF, which is about 450-ish megahertz, we call that a dual band radio. So there are many different bands you can use in the ham radio community that you have access to once you get a license. This radio is a dual band radio, so it works on both 2 meter and also 70 centimeter wavelengths, or bands, if you will. And this also not only can transmit on those bands, it has a wide reception range. For example, we have basically, this is on a FM station. I have the squelch down on this one, and the antenna, this small little quarter wave antenna, is not really going to receive much, especially where I am right now, given my location, and I have a whole bunch of electronics around me that emit RF, so it's definitely like dampening the reception on this radio. But this can receive FM broadcast stations. We'll push the band button here. We have air. I'm going to turn the volume down so we don't blow up the speakers here. We have the VHF ham bands here, which I have a whole bunch of frequencies I just programmed into another one I had today. So we got the main calling frequency, the 146520. It's on FM mode. This thing can receive AM broadcast bands too. Okay, so sound went out. Sorry about that. Okay, here we go. All right, now we're back. Sorry about that, guys. Cable came out of my H5. I'm running it off a USB power, so we're back and running. Yeah, Alex, you make a good point. Just because I have a license, or you don't have a license, doesn't mean you can't transmit on these frequencies in an emergency. So what's going to happen, there's been kind of cases that have shown what happens, and judges will chastise you for it, but at the end of the day, you rather, call for help, do the right thing, and, get a backlash off of that than having the emergency go without help. So in other words, you can use these frequencies in a emergency when you don't have a cell phone or other means of communication. So when I say get your license, it's just a way for you to talk on the air and practice your ham radio operating skills, because you're going to know how to redirect signals, how to hold the radio, how antenna propagation works, things like that, and that's going to make your operation more efficient, and also sending information to and from on a radio. You don't have all the time in the world and all the battery power sometimes, so you have to make your communications very concise, very brief, if you will, if you can, and very to the point. So it teaches you how to say things in a quick, timely, efficient manner. And also, the other important thing with getting your license is you can also volunteer as a special event station for special events on the radio waves, and that can help you work what we call pile-ups. That means a lot of stations trying to talk to you at once through the radio, so you get overloaded, so you got to be able to manage communications efficiently in that sense. So having a license gives you access to training and practicing and going out in the field and practicing. We're always talking about practicing with our EDC items and skills. Radio is no different. You want to be able to get your license, practice with your friends. You meet all sorts of people on the air too. There's a whole bunch of different things about the ham radio hobby once you get into it that you can get into. It's like a very, very big dark hole. I feel like, is my audio working, or is it kind of like not working right now? Roger that. Thanks, Marine. So these radios you can't find except on eBay or at Hamfests, and so we've gone over the VX1R. There's some shortcomings with it, namely finding battery replacements. The battery case on the bottom, the lid here, if you push it, it can go off sometimes, so it's not the best connective joint area. That being said, you can find ways around it, and I believe Alex or someone else might have mentioned that you can power this particular model off a USB power and not have RF interfere with receiving or transmitting. So they do sell these small little DC to USB cables online on eBay, and you can take those cables and you can take a battery joint and you can plug those cables into a USB battery bank, plug it into your radio. You can transmit and receive for as long as your battery bank lasts. And I've run this off of solar panels too as well, without the battery inside of it. So it's a very flexible and capable radio. The only problem with this radio in terms of that is that it's very weak in terms of RF output. You're looking at 50 milliwatts on low with the battery inside, and about 500 milliwatts on high or regular with the battery inside. If you plug it into a power source, you're looking at a little bit more, like say 200 milliwatts on low, and maybe give or take probably about 700 milliwatts out on high. If you plug it into the AC wall unit, you're going to get like a watt out if you increase the voltage to like 6 volts, and maybe about 500 milliwatts on low with this unit. That being said, it's got its limitations, but if you know how to connect an external antenna to this, how to make your own antenna and deploy it in the field, and find the right location and time, all that stuff with practice, this can be a very, very versatile tool. And the fact that it's so small is that it's likely going to be on you when you need it. So that's the most important thing about this micro EDC ham radio. It's just something that's going to slip in your front pouch pocket. You can get different antennas for this, for a shorter antenna, which is compromised, but it makes carrying this thing a little bit more easier. So, and you can still receive with it too. And there's certain ways to open up these transmitters. I'm not going to say how or anything like that, but you can transmit on non-ham radio bands in an emergency. So take that as you may. But this is my favorite micro HC radio, and I always carry it with my little micro kit sets here. So let's go to the VX3R. Yes, that's correct. It has a low current draw under standard times. A very, very low current draw, in fact. I haven't measured it precisely, but perhaps I should do that in a little bit with my USB tester here in the current draw through. I got to find where I put my cable in the kit. I got to go through one of my bags and get the cable out. I ordered another one off eBay. Should be coming soon for this one. But going over to a more slightly, they're about the same size. It's slightly a little bit bigger. This is the Yaesu VX3R model. Now this came out in like the late 90s, like 98, I think, 99 era for the VX1R, and this came out in like 2005-ish, that kind of era. So the technology progressed at that point. And what we see on here is a little bit aftermarket adaptations. This has the default antenna on it. This has an aftermarket antenna. This is a dual band antenna. It's a little bit more flexible than, say, the harder rubber antenna. And we have what they call a SMA to BNC adapter, meaning that this now attaches via this BNC port. It's a little bit more lossy in terms of the SMA connectors, not to get too specific, but this makes the interchangeability of antennas on this unit a little bit more efficient and faster while maintaining a rugged profile. So this one has a small little SMA adapter on it, so it's very, very tiny. It's very fragile, and it can break easily. The trade-off is that this is less lossy, especially at higher frequencies like UHF and super high frequency ranges. So you definitely want SMA connectors, but for VHF operations you can get away with BNC type connectors. So this is a BNC here. I don't know if you guys can see that. Very easy to plug on and off. I usually get a lot of my coaxial cables with BNC connections or N type connectors if I can afford it. I try to stay away from PL259 and SO239 connections. Sometimes you can't avoid it, but you know, that's a small little nitpick of mine on radios. But anyway, get away from that tangent. I know I'm going off on a tangent here. The VX3R is also a dual band radio, much like the VX1R. Oh yeah, sign stick antennas. Yeah, they make good HT antennas, those guys. I generally just stick with diamond, and sometimes if I have the components, I'll make my own antennas. Or what I'll do is I'll go to the Hamfest and I'll specifically hunt out older HTs that they're selling for parts and whatnot, and I'll buy the HTs. I don't care about the HTs as much, or the radios. What I care about is the antennas that are on them. Those are still high quality, especially the ones from the 80s and 90s. So a little tip and trick, if you're trying to save money, you can probably go to Hamfest, and instead of buying the newer type of antennas, you can get the older model antennas. This came from an old Yaesu FT470 radio. I have about 3 of them, and this is a dual band antenna as well, but it's also BNC, so you can take this and switch it out with this antenna here. So it's a very modular system, this BNC adapter, and I can quickly change antennas. So if I have, say, an antenna that works with 6 meters, for example, on one radio, and it's a BNC, and this only does 270, I can swap this out with that one and move it over, and I can have better reception, and I can change the kind of gain I get off the antenna, and basically just keep rolling with it. I keep hitting my lamp here, that's the dinging sound. But basically, that's why I like my BNC connection options. It's quick to change in and out, especially when you're in the field and you're going to get poured on, or it's going to rain on you, and you're doing, like, say, hilltop operations, meaning you're on top of a hill with your radio gear. You want to be able to move quickly, deploy quickly, break down quickly, and scoot out of there, especially when lightning comes in. But I'm getting too far on tangents here. So basically, this is a nice dual band radio. It's got what's different compared to the VX1R is that it lasts a little bit longer on the battery. The battery is in the back here. There's no clip on it anymore, and these are like small camera batteries. So you can buy, like, the batteries for these are abundant. You can buy them on eBay for like $5, and the charger for another $5 or so. So finding battery replacements to run this is a little bit easier in terms of spare parts as opposed to this particular radio. They did make a AA adapter for this one, and they do make a AAA adapter for the VX3R, which is a little bit more common. So the parts on this are still a little bit more common, but another thing they changed with this is the dialing. You pull it up and you can turn it, and then you can push it in and it closes down. You can find these on eBay for a very hefty price. They're like $200 something, $250. Very expensive, and they go for more than what they originally went for market retail. Aftermarket, it's just prices are blown out of the water. If you can find these for around $100, that's a pretty good buy, or less too. At a Hamfest, again, if you can haggle with the guys and get one of these, I definitely recommend them for sure. So this transmits at about 500 milliwatts on low, and about, I think, 1.5 watts on the battery. So it's a little bit more output power versus the VX1R, and a little bit more runtime. And it also has a couple of different items. You can't run this one off of DC to USB current directly. You have to get a little bit up converter with this type of module, is what I noticed. So unfortunately, you, like what you can do with the flexibility with the VX1R, you can't do with the VX3R. So this transceiver still does 2-meter bands and 70 centimeter bands, much like the VX1R, and it has a wideband reception, a little bit more wideband. You can do low band reception on the lower, like 50 megahertz or so on VHF. It also has a shortwave antenna bar inside of it, or AM bar, if you will. So this is a little bit more efficient at pulling in AM broadcast signals in it, and it's got a better dial for that. So if we go to push the radio button here, and I'll turn down the volume on here. So as you can see, we're on 770 AM, and we're receiving it. And this one probably won't receive it. This one has a number alignment. This one just has a little bar on the bottom. When you go to tune your station in, you only see a bar moving back and forth on this. So it's a digital, like, kind of bar that goes back and forth like the older radios. This one actually has a digital readout for it. So that's kind of nice to have this upgrade in it. So there's the FM station, and this is receiving pretty good with the antenna here. So we change that, and you can change your band. So we're in the 2-meter band here. No bank. I don't have memory banks in here, but I do have my, here's a shortwave band area here, 4.840. So again, this receives AM shortwave broadcast stations. If you attach a external antenna on here via the BNC port, you will pull them in, especially at night is a good time to receive due to the ionization of the atmosphere. So this is a great travel micro HT to carry with the EDC kit, mainly because it also has a earphone port here on the side. This one does not have that. It has a mic speaker jack in the top. This one just has a stereo decoding output port on the VX3R, which is really nice, comfortable listening experience when you're listening to stuff in your earbuds. You can use this to listen in on, say, you can bring it on a plane. You can listen to the pilot frequencies if they're using the 130 megahertz or 100 to 130 megahertz bandwidth. You can eavesdrop in on airport broadcasts and whatnot with this, and nobody will know the difference. This also has the microphone speaker port on the top, much like the VX1R. And this comes with usually a lanyard. This is an aftermarket one. I lost this one didn't come with, when I bought it, didn't come with one, but they usually do. This has this default lanyard. I'm a big lanyard guy because I tend to drop my shit down, so I don't want to do that. Hey, we got Simple Preparedness in here. How you doing, Brett? Good to see you. So it's first time live streaming here, just babbling on. I'm going to check more of the chat here, try to keep an update. Yeah, very cool. So yeah, if you guys want to have like a small carry radio, I do recommend these types of radios if you can find them for the right price. You might be better off looking at the newer age stuff, which is not as small as this, unfortunately. These are hard to find nowadays. I think Icom makes a micro HT like this too, and maybe a Linko, if I'm not mistaken. I think the Linko has those older 90s credit card radios, but these are the best functional micro radios, micro type of HTs, I'll say, because they have a lot of UI systems that are pretty intuitive once you get used to using the Yaesu menu system. So, and they have a lot of different options on it for bandwidth, radios, weather radios. So let me turn this one back on here, and it gives you a voltage on the front there, which is nice to check your battery voltage. So if we go to special bank function, we have weather frequencies programmed automatically into this one. That's another difference with the VX3R versus the VX1R. You have to manually program your weather frequencies in the Yaesu VX1R versus the 3R, it's already pre-programmed in. And also this has a lot more memory banks as opposed to this one. It's only got about 50 usable ones, I've noticed. This one has, like, I think maybe 900, so memory expansion is a lot more in this one. Okay, let's move along to some more traditional EDC items like micro multi-tools. This is my keychain here, so as you can see I keep a variety of different tools on it. We'll start with the Leatherman Micro. Once again, this is a nice little scissor-based multi-tool. Stainless steel, has tweezers here, has a slotted screwdriver, or rather this is the Phillips head, my bad. And we also have a smaller slotted screwdriver, very, very small one here, with a bottle opener, or a bottle cap opener. And we got the tweezers here on the side. These are okay tweezers. They don't work the best, but they get the job done. These scissors are not like a Victorinox scissors, but I use them more heavier duty stuff, so I don't have to dull my Victorinox scissors. So they do have a place, and I typically like having scissors on me because it's one of my most used tools outside of being outdoors. If I'm not outdoors, I'm using scissors for something, electronics or plastic cutting or precision cutting for, like, for example, I was trying to put a protective strip on my screen here, so I used the Victorinox scissors to precisely cut the strip and put it on the LCD screen. So I would use something like this as well for that kind of need. Okay, I understand. Enjoy your run, my friend. Hopefully we'll see you again, and thanks for stopping by. Let me know what kind of ham radio stuff you get into and what you're looking at. All right. We have the nail file here, and this is a decent little file. It's good for your nails, and you can use it for light duty and tasks. We got a little hook here for grabbing stuff, I guess, underneath the nails if you want, or hard to reach places if you want to do cleaning. And here is our slotted screwdriver right here. This is a little bit thicker than the small one we came by, so it's our primary slotted screwdriver for this. And then finally we have our blade. So I'm not an expert on blades. I don't know too much about them. I'm slowly learning about them, and this one's pretty good. It retains its sharpness decently, and I've only had to just go over it with a small sharpener very briefly to keep it honed. And that's the Leatherman Micro. Once again, we have the measurements on the back here for inches and centimeters. Definitely useful, and as you can see, it's my daily keychain carry. I might switch it up and put the Leatherman Squirt P4 on there. And while we have the Leatherman Squirt P4 in our hands, we'll go over that briefly. This has a small slotted screwdriver, a very tiny one. And we have a small, I guess this would be an awl. It's not really sharp. It's just a poker bit. So it could be used for cleaning things or making a hole in a non-hard surface. We have the Phillips head screwdriver here. This is a very tiny one. It's a 2D one. And then we have a larger slotted screwdriver here, along with a bottle cap opener combo system. Moving along to this side here, we have a file which has one set of hatching here and a cross set of hatching here, which is a little bit more aggressive. And then we have our teeth on the bottom here as well. So this is a decent little mini file. I have used this before to get some burrs out of metal, and it has come in handy for light duty tasks. Then on this side we have the blade again. This is just like the Leatherman Micro blade, same kind of blade here. And then finally, the main difference is the pliers, which are spring based, much like the scissor portion of the Micro. We have a sort of a needle nose type grip in the front, not really a true needle nose, but it's a thinner profile. Then we have the traditional pliers in the center here, and then we have the wire cutter here as well. So this is a kind of a nice little pocketable micro EDC tool. I recommend, if you're looking for pliers for light duty tasks, this would be great. You can use these pliers for like getting splinters out of your hand. I've done that before, and for fine tasks where your bigger pliers won't be able to get into. For example, we have the Leatherman Sidekick here, and these pliers are a little bit thicker. Sometimes I can't get into a hole with these pliers to get something out, so what I'll do is I'll take these thinner ones and get in there. Even though these do come to a finer point, these are overall smaller profile to get in some place, and they require less effort to pull something out. So definitely a good little micro EDC tool to have when you're out there. I have a little keychain lanyard on it. Last but not least, we have one of my favorite micro EDC tools next to the Squirt P4 Leatherman. This is the Victorinox Swiss Army Midnight Mini Champ. And this particular model comes in two types of models, one with the red LED and one with the white LED. So that's one of the special features about the Midnight series, is that it has an LED in the scale, whereas you would have a toothpick in that part of the scale. Instead, we have a LED with the interchangeable battery here. You can pop the battery out of the compartment and replace it. It lasts a decent amount of time. I use this for a quick grab and look. So this helps me find a keyhole port, or if I'm working on something in the dark and I don't have time to grab like a light, go through my kit, I'll just pull this out, look at it, because I probably already have it out for another tool that I'm using. So it's a convenient type of miniature light to have on your persons. Is it a main duty light? No. Is it the best light in the world? No, not at all. Definitely not. But what it does is it's a good backup option for quick, take a look at something, turn it off. So it's a convenient way of seeing something really quick. The next thing that's nice about this in the, what you could say, the tweezer or toothpick slot, is the small pen. So they make refillable type of inserts here. You pull them out, replace them. They go for about like $8, so they're very pricey. If you can find a batch on eBay, you might be able to buy them on eBay for cheaper. But this has a little slide mechanism which engages the pen to come out of the hole port, slides back in. Writes fairly good for a ballpoint pen type of item. It's not the best writing experience, but in a pinch, if you're only going to be limited what you can carry for the day, this is a perfect item to have. I know what you could also do, what I've seen online, you can extend the tool here. This is a 3D Phillips head screwdriver with a bottle cap opener and a wire bender. You can open it up like that, and you can put it in your hand, and now you have a little bit more surface area for writing, so it can be a little bit more comfortable writing with this if you're going to do that. I usually reserve this pen for a backup item in case I don't have my pen on me and I got to sign something, perhaps at the trail that day, or some paperwork at the office. This comes in handy, or even at the bank if I got to sign a check or something like that. This is perfect for that duty. So we already went over the combo tool, a 3-in-1 combo tool here. Before we go into the tools, I want to show that I do have a small Bayrite ferro rod on here, and I have used this for starting a little bit of sparks out. It's hard to do it with this one because it's so low surface area, so you don't get a lot of friction, but you can do it. Not very practical if you don't have fine motor skills, but we do have a little bit of a fire making ability with this micro EDC tool. So there's a micro fire starting ferro rod. But getting back to the tool here, we'll start again on this side. We have the Victorinox scissors. These are great scissors. I never leave home without a good pair of scissors because they're just so useful in my task, as I mentioned before. Yeah, I agree, Brett. Simple Preparedness here. He's got a nice EDC channel, guys. If you want to check out his stuff, he does live streaming as well as Marine X. Very knowledgeable guy, great friend. He has a lot of good practical knowledge and field experience with his tools and his advice for EDC items. Definitely check out his channel, guys, along with Marine X too. So those are both two guys I really enjoy watching and having a good time with. So if you guys get a chance, check them out. Getting back to the scissors here, the main weakness points of this is obviously the spring, which you can replace, but it does break after a certain amount of time. Other than that, I never had one of these break on me, so I try to treat my tools as well as I can. Sometimes I don't, but we have the main blade here, little pen blade, I guess you'd call it. This is a nice sharp blade, and it's good for precise cutting. It's thin, but it gets the job done. There's also a secondary blade on here, which we'll go over, but that's your classic small blade here. And on this side, we have a cuticle pusher, which is for your nails. I don't really use it in that function. I use it as a light duty scraper or a scooper, or even a light duty pry bar when I put the pressure right in the side here. I don't try to put the pressure by the spring, but you can use that as a pry bar. Nice little handy tool. Next up is a small slotted screwdriver here at the tip, and we have a ruler here on this side. And on this side it's just flat. I'm not sure why they didn't decide to put a small piece of a file on that side, but there's a file with this one as well. So we have inches and centimeters on this ruler here. Here's one of my most used tools, is the orange peel, or the box opener, if you will. It's very sharp on this edge here, and when you pull back, it does a good job of cutting things. So this is a nice little addition to the tool set here, and it works very well. I use this instead of my blades, and if I don't want to dull my blades, I can dull that. Moving over, we have a smaller, thinner knife. This is a sheep's foot type of knife, so if you're trying to cut into something, you're not necessarily going to run into your finger or whatever and cut yourself. So it's kind of nice. It's very, very fine pointed and very thin, so it's a little bit more precise on the cutting, which I like. And then I think last but not least, we have the file. So we have the nail file here, a little poker bit, and a blank side. And that is the Victorinox Midnight Mini Champ with the white LED version. Again, a great tool, one of my favorite tools, because it combines 3 different aspects of my EDC kit: a writing device, cutting device, and a lighting device and or a signaling device. And if you plan it just right, you can have a fire making device with it. So you have 4 different things in the size of one thing, I guess you could say, and a little bit of cordage if you want to include this, but it's not really, you know, cordage. You can, I suppose you can do a little wrap around this, make this into, you know, a braided thing, maybe with some really thin cordage. That might be an idea to test out, honestly. But so then I can have 5 different things with just this micro EDC item. But that's getting a little too crazy. I tend to get a little crazy with stuff like that. So moving along, we do have some micro EDC lights. These are Olight ones. I do have other branded ones that are similar to these, but these are the most popular kind of ones, and for good reason. It's one of the few Olight products that I really enjoy, as opposed to like their other lights. They're kind of, in terms of a flashlight enthusiast, they're okay. They're not like top tier. They're not bad either, but there's better bang for your buck. And one of the exception is the small pill light type of devices that they make. So we have this I-102 EOS. This is a micro EDC rechargeable light, and you can charge it with the included cable that they give you, or if you have a micro EDC cable, you can charge it. This is spring loaded, so you won't lose the cap, and it's captured, so you're not going to forget about it somewhere. You can pull these off, mod out the LED inside of it, with, like some guys do, but I don't do that personally. You can't replace the battery in here. The run times on low are about, in my estimation, about 6 to 7 hours on low, and probably about maybe 15 minutes at most on high. So you can see that there. It's got a cool white LED in there. I think this is a not an Osram LED. I can't remember what type of LED they have in here precisely, but great little tool. It's the smallest out of the pill lights that they released, and I like these because they fit in such small areas. So you can see it stacked against the Multitools there. It's very tiny light, and especially for a rechargeable light, I use this one almost all the time with me when I'm in the dark. It's got a lot of wear and tear on the anodized aluminum, but it comes in handy. This one I keep more protected. This is the newer version. It's called the I-1R2 Pro. This happens to be the special edition version. I think this is the 15th anniversary edition, if I'm not mistaken, if I'm reading that right. Basically, the difference with this versus this is the color of the LED. This one's going to be a little bit more neutral in tone, which I prefer my neutral tones as opposed to a blue or light, personally. So when we talk about lights, one thing to keep in mind is that there's a Kelvin rating in terms of color corrected temperature rating. 5,000 being right in the middle as neutral white. If you go lower than that, it becomes warmer, like sunset kind of colors rendering. And if you go higher than that, it's more like main daylight type of color rendering up to like fluorescent type of bulbs. So you get more towards the incandescent older bulbs, and then more to the more not artificial, but more bluer light. I personally prefer a warmer tint. That's just the way I grew up with things with the old mag lights and stuff. So enough of that. This is a USB-C rechargeable light. Again, this has two modes on it. It has a high mode and a low mode. So it's a pretty small light, not as small as the its predecessor, or rather its how do you say it, the previous model. But it's got a USB-C charging port, which is good. It's a little bit more resilient. Once again, it's still a captured device, so you can't lose the head. And it's got spring-loaded action there. It's got an O-ring. So these are also waterproof, which is kind of nice. Definitely good gifts to get when they go on sale at the Olight site. They just had a sale for Halloween, I think, and another sale for end of summer. You can usually pick these up for about $5.42 on the sales, and they usually take place once a month. So keep an eye out for these micro EDC lights. I think my battery in the camera is going to die soon, so I guess I'm going to wrap it up here. I know it's kind of a long discussion here, longer than I planned, but I want to thank you guys for coming out and watching. Yeah, it looks like the camera just went out, so I'll thank MarineX, Simple Preparedness, Alex, and Understand the Times, and the other guys who came in. Thanks for watching, and I guess we'll close it down here. The batteries just died on the camera here.